I exposed my sister's affair with my fiancé at our engagement party. 6 months later, she's pregnant and wants me back in her life for the baby's sake. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister Megan, 29F. Growing up, we were the only children in a family that valued achievement above all else. Our parents, both successful lawyers, had high expectations for us from a young age. This environment naturally bred competition between Megan and me, but for the most part, it was relatively harmless sibling rivalry. I was always the more academically inclined one. I enjoyed studying and got good grades without much effort. Megan, on the other hand, struggled in school but excelled in sports and social situations. She was popular, outgoing, and seemed to make friends effortlessly. I often envied her ability to navigate social situations with such ease, while I preferred the company of books to people. Despite our differences, Megan and I were close as children. We shared a room until I was 12 and she was 9, and I have fond memories of late-night conversations and shared secrets. However, things began to change when I entered high school. As I focused more on my studies and less on socializing, the gap between Megan and me seemed to widen. She began to resent the praise I received for my academic achievements, while her athletic accomplishments often went unnoticed by our parents. Looking back, I can see how this must have been difficult for her, but at the time I was too caught up in my own world to notice. The real turning point in our relationship came when I was 18 and Megan was 15. Megan started dating a guy from my class, Philip. He was popular and good-looking, but I never paid much attention to him. What I didn't know at the time was that Philip had a crush on me and was only dating Megan to get closer to me. Philip constantly compared Megan to me, telling her how much smarter or prettier I was. He would make comments like, "You're so lucky to have a sister like her to look up to," or, "Don't you wish you could be more like your sister?" This relentless comparison took a toll on Megan's already fragile self-esteem. I remained oblivious to this situation for months. Megan never told me about Philip's behavior, and I was too focused on my college applications to notice the growing tension. It wasn't until much later that I learned the full extent of what had happened. One day, I overheard Philip talking to his friends about how he was only dating Megan to get closer to me. I was horrified and immediately confronted him. I told him to leave Megan alone and that I would never be interested in someone who would treat my sister that way. I thought I was doing the right thing, but in hindsight, I realized I should have talked to Megan first. When Megan found out about my confrontation with Philip, she was furious. Instead of seeing it as me defending her, she saw it as another example of me overshadowing her. She accused me of ruining her relationship and making her look foolish in front of her friends. From that point on, Megan's attitude towards me changed completely. She became hostile and distant, and any attempt I made to mend our relationship was met with cold indifference or outright hostility. Things came to a head during my senior year. Megan, now a sophomore, spread a vicious rumor that I had cheated on my then-boyfriend with one of our teachers. The rumor spread like wildfire, and suddenly everyone was whispering about me in the hallways. My boyfriend broke up with me, and I became a social outcast overnight. I was devastated. Not only had I lost my boyfriend and my social standing, but the betrayal from my own sister cut deep. When I confronted Megan about it, she just smirked and said, "Now you know how it feels to be the lesser sister." Her words shocked me to my core. In a moment of rage and hurt, I retaliated. I revealed to everyone at school that Megan had gotten drunk at a party and made out with her best friend's boyfriend. It was true, but Megan had sworn me to secrecy. After that, Megan lost all her friends and became the school pariah. Our relationship never recovered from this mutual betrayal. We barely spoke for years, only seeing each other at family gatherings where we'd put on a show of civility for our parents' sake. Our parents, ever focused on maintaining the image of a perfect family, chose to ignore the tension between us rather than address it. Fast forward to last year. I had built a successful career as a marketing executive, and while my professional life was thriving, my personal life had been a series of short-lived relationships. That all changed when I met Ryan, 34M. Ryan was different from anyone I'd ever dated. He was kind, successful, and seemed to genuinely care about me. We met at a charity event where he was representing his tech startup. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of true crime podcasts and spicy food. Our relationship progressed quickly, and within a year we were talking about marriage. When Ryan proposed, I was over the moon. He did it during a weekend getaway to the beach, getting down on one knee as the sun set over the ocean. It was perfect, and I couldn't wait to start our life together. For our engagement party, my parents insisted I invite Megan. I was hesitant given our history, but Ryan convinced me it was a good idea to extend an olive branch. "Maybe this can be a fresh start for you two," he said. Against my better judgment, I agreed and invited her, hoping we could finally move past our issues. The engagement party was last weekend. We held it at a beautiful venue overlooking the city. Everything was going great. The food was delicious, the champagne was flowing, and even Megan seemed to be on her best behavior. She congratulated us and even hugged me, something she hadn't done in years. As the evening wore on, I noticed that both Megan and Ryan were missing. I didn't think much of it at first. Ryan had mentioned needing to take a work call, and I assumed Megan was in the restroom. But after 30 minutes, I started to worry. I asked around, but no one had seen them. I decided to check Ryan's office, which was in the same building as the party venue. As I approached, I heard muffled voices. I recognized them immediately. It was Ryan and Megan. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were talking about their affair, which had apparently been going on for months. I was in shock. Without thinking, I burst into the room. Megan was sitting on Ryan's lap, and they both looked like deer caught in headlights. Ryan immediately started apologizing, saying it was a mistake and it didn't mean anything. Megan, on the other hand, just smirked and said, "I guess I win this round, sis." Something in me snapped. All the years of rivalry, betrayal, and hurt came rushing back. I stormed out of the office and back to the party. I grabbed a microphone and announced to everyone what I had just witnessed. The room fell silent. Then, chaos erupted. Ryan and Megan came running in, trying to explain, but it was too late. My parents were mortified. Ryan's family was in disbelief, and our friends were stunned. In the aftermath, Ryan begged for forgiveness, saying Megan had seduced him and it was a moment of weakness. Megan tried to play the victim, claiming Ryan had pursued her and she was too scared to say anything. But I wasn't buying any of it. I called off the engagement and kicked them both out of the party. As they left, Megan turned to me and said, "You always thought you were better than me. How does it feel to know I got the one thing you wanted most?" Her words cut deep, reminding me of all the pain and resentment that had built up between us over the years. My parents are furious with me for causing a scene and embarrassing the family. They say I should have handled it privately, that airing our dirty laundry in public is unacceptable. But I don't regret what I did. After years of Megan trying to one-up me and ruin my life, I finally exposed her for who she really is. Now, my parents are pressuring me to forgive Megan and Ryan, saying family is more important than anything. They keep bringing up how we used to be as children, as if that erases everything that's happened since. But I can't imagine ever speaking to either of them again. I'm left wondering if I did the right thing. Should I have kept quiet and dealt with this privately? Was exposing them at the party too much? I feel justified in my actions, but the doubt is creeping in. ATA for exposing their affair at the engagement party instead of dealing with it privately? Update 1. It's been a week since the engagement party fiasco, and my life feels like it's been turned upside down. I've been staying with my best friend Sarah to avoid the constant barrage of calls and texts from family members telling me to make things right. Sarah has been an absolute rock through all of this, providing a safe space for me to process everything that's happened. Yesterday, I finally agreed to meet with my parents at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. I thought they wanted to apologize or at least hear my side of the story. I was wrong. As soon as we sat down, they launched into a lecture about how I've always been jealous of Megan and how I need to stop competing with her. They brought up incidents from our childhood, twisting them to fit their narrative. They talked about how I was always trying to outdo Megan in school, conveniently forgetting how they had pushed me to excel academically. They claimed that Megan was vulnerable and that Ryan took advantage of her. When I pointed out that Megan is a grown woman capable of making her own decisions, they accused me of victim blaming. It was like they had completely forgotten all the times Megan had deliberately hurt me or tried to sabotage my relationships in the past. The conversation took an even more surprising turn when they revealed that they had invited Ryan and Megan to join us. Before I could protest, the two of them walked in and sat down at our table. I felt ambushed and betrayed all over again. Ryan immediately started apologizing, tears in his eyes, saying how sorry he was and how much he loved me. He talked about how it was a mistake, how Megan had seduced him when he was vulnerable after a fight we'd had. He promised it would never happen again, that he wanted to make things right. Megan, on the other hand, sat there with a smug look on her face, occasionally nodding along to Ryan's apologies. She didn't say much, but her body language spoke volumes. It was clear she didn't regret what had happened. My parents then dropped the real bombshell. They want me to forgive Ryan and go through with the wedding. Their reasoning? He made a mistake, but he clearly loves you. And think of all the money we've already spent on the wedding. I was stunned. I looked around the table at their expectant faces and realized they all thought I was going to give in. That this little ambush would make me forget years of betrayal and manipulation. It was like they didn't know me at all. I stood up, looked Ryan in the eye, and said, "I hope you and Megan are very happy together. You deserve each other." Then I turned to my parents and added, "And if you're so worried about the money you spent on the wedding, why don't you let Megan and Ryan use it? I'm sure they'll make a lovely couple." With that, I walked out of the cafe. As I was leaving, I heard my mother call out, "You're making a big mistake. You'll regret this." But for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally making the right choice. When I got back to Sarah's place, I had dozens of missed calls and messages, some from family members berating me for being stubborn, others from friends offering support. But the one that caught my eye was from my older cousin, Emma. Emma has always been the black sheep of the family. She moved across the country years ago and rarely comes to family events. Growing up, I always admired her strength and independence. She was never afraid to stand up to our family's expectations and live life on her own terms. Her message was simple. "I heard what happened. If you need a fresh start, I have a spare room. No pressure, no judgment." I'm seriously considering taking her up on the offer. The idea of putting thousands of miles between me and all this drama is becoming more appealing by the minute, but it's a big decision. I've built a life here. I have a good job, friends, a routine. Starting over somewhere new is daunting. At the same time, I can't help but think about how freeing it would be to be away from the constant reminders of what happened. To not have to worry about running into Ryan or Megan at the grocery store. To not have to deal with my parents' disappointment and manipulation. I've taken a week off work to clear my head and figure out what I want to do next. Sarah has been amazing, listening to me ramble for hours as I try to make sense of everything. She thinks moving might be good for me, a chance to rediscover who I am outside of my family's expectations. I've also been going through old photos and mementos, trying to understand how Megan and I got to this point. Looking at pictures of Usa's kids, smiling and happy, it's hard to reconcile with where we are now. I found an old diary from when I was 16, and reading it was eye-opening. I had written about how much I admired Megan's confidence and social skills, how I wished I could be more like her. It's ironic how things turned out. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm not ready to make any big decisions yet, but I'm also not going to let my family pressure me into doing something I'll regret. I've spent too many years trying to please everyone else. It's time I started putting myself first. I'll keep you all updated on what I decide. Again, thank you for all your support. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has changed. After much soul-searching and long conversations with Sarah, I decided to take Emma up on her offer. I quit my job, packed up what I could fit in my car, and drove across the country to start a new life. The drive itself was cathartic. 3 days on the open road with nothing but my thoughts and the endless horizon ahead of me. I cried a lot, but I also laughed. I felt like I was shedding my old self with every mile I put between me and my hometown. Living with Emma has been eye-opening. She shared stories about our family that I never knew, painting a picture of generational toxicity that explains so much about my relationship with Megan and my parents. Apparently, our grandmother was just as manipulative as our mother, always pitting her children against each other. It's a cycle that's been repeating for generations, and I'm determined to break it. Emma has been incredibly supportive. She's given me space when I need it, but she's also there to talk when I'm feeling overwhelmed. She's introduced me to her friends who have welcomed me with open arms. It's refreshing to be around people who don't know my history, who don't have any preconceived notions about who I am or who I should be. The distance has given me clarity. I've blocked Ryan and Megan on everything. My parents still try to reach out occasionally, but I've made it clear that I'm not interested in reconciliation unless they can acknowledge how they've enabled Megan's behavior over the years. So far, they haven't been willing to do that. Last week, I received a letter from Megan. At first, I was tempted to throw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. It was not what I expected. Megan wrote that she's pregnant and Ryan is the father. She claims they're in love and planning to get married. She went on to say that she's always been jealous of me and that seducing Ryan was her way of finally winning. She ended the letter by saying she hopes we can one day be in each other's lives again, for the sake of her child. I was floored. Part of me wants to reach out to Ryan and warn him about what he's getting into, but I know that's not my responsibility anymore. I've decided not to respond to the letter at all. Emma agrees that maintaining no contact is the healthiest choice for me right now. Emma suggested I start seeing a therapist to work through all of this, and I think she's right. I found someone local and have my first appointment next week. I'm nervous about opening up to a stranger, but I know I need help processing everything that's happened. Despite everything, I'm starting to feel hopeful about the future. I've got a job interview lined up at a local marketing firm. It's a step down from my previous position, but I'm excited about the opportunity to prove myself in a new environment. I'm also trying to rediscover who I am outside of my family's expectations. I've started taking a pottery class at the local community center. I'm terrible at it, but it's fun to create something with my hands. I've also joined a hiking group and have been exploring the beautiful trails in the area. There are still days when I wake up feeling angry and hurt, days when I miss my old life and wonder if I made the right choice. But those days are becoming fewer and farther between. I'm learning to be kind to myself, to allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling without judgment. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I'm on the right path. Thank you all for your continued support and advice. It's been a lifeline during this crazy time. Update 3. 6 months have passed since I moved, and my life has taken yet another unexpected turn. I got the job I interviewed for, and I've been throwing myself into work. It's been a great distraction from everything else, and I'm starting to feel like I'm building a real career here. About 2 months ago, I received a call from my dad. He was in tears, something I've never heard before. He told me that my mom had a heart attack. She's okay now, but it was a close call. He begged me to come home, saying life's too short for grudges. I was conflicted. Part of me wanted to rush home, but another part remembered all the pain and manipulation. After talking it over with my therapist, I decided to visit, but on my terms. I made it clear to my dad that this wasn't a reconciliation, just a visit to check on Mom's health. I flew back last weekend. Seeing my mom in the hospital was hard. She looked so small and vulnerable in that hospital bed, nothing like the strong, often overbearing woman I remembered. We didn't talk much about the past. Instead, she told me about her recovery plan, and I shared a little about my new job. It was strained, but civil. What I wasn't prepared for was running into Megan at the hospital. She's visibly pregnant now, and Ryan was with her. It was awkward, to say the least. Ryan couldn't even look me in the eye, but Megan seemed almost remorseful. Later, Megan asked to speak to me privately. We went to the hospital cafeteria, and for a moment, it felt like we were kids again, sharing secrets over lunch. She broke down crying, saying the pregnancy has made her realize how terrible she's been. She admitted to years of jealousy and manipulation, even confessing that she'd lied about Ryan pursuing her. It was all her idea. I listened, but I didn't offer forgiveness. I told her I'm glad she's recognizing her behavior, but that doesn't erase the pain she's caused. She seemed to understand, and for once, didn't try to argue or manipulate the situation. The visit was emotionally draining, but also clarifying. I realized that while I care about my family's well-being, I'm not ready to let them back into my life fully. The distance has been good for me, allowing me to grow and heal in ways I never could have if I'd stayed. I'm back at Emma's now, processing everything. My therapist says I've made great progress, and I feel it too. I'm not angry anymore, just tired. Tired of the drama, tired of the hurt. I've decided to extend my stay here indefinitely. I like my job, I'm making friends, and I feel like I can finally be myself without constantly looking over my shoulder for the next family crisis. As for my family, I'm taking it day by day. I've agreed to call my mom once a week to check on her health, but I've made it clear that full reconciliation will take time, if it happens at all. Last night, Emma and I stayed up late talking about family, healing, and the future. She shared more stories about our family history, and we laughed about some of the ridiculous expectations that were placed on us growing up. It felt good to be able to look at these things with some distance and perspective. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own story. I'm not defined by my relationship with Megan or by what happened with Ryan. I'm my own person, making my own choices and building the life I want. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day I'll be ready to have a real relationship with my family again. Maybe I'll stay here and build a completely new life for myself. Either way, I know I'll be okay. I'm stronger than I ever gave myself credit for, and I'm excited to see what comes next.